The Epiphany was consummated with an evening party with music and poetry.
Let us taste the fruits from Eden's groves, sing and slide, explode out of the murky shadows and mend this schism. Mend it. Let us lather milk and honey. Let us drool the honey and lather the milk together in a sacred reunion.
I gave a seminar on biocosmology and the reflowering of the tree of life in scientific terms.
And it's also nipping in the bud the very flowering of the future of evolution, because we don't know what role a given species may have in the future of evolution. The Earth is going to continue to evolve, and humanity isn't the only species of significance on the planet, so we don't know where the source of new unexpected change is going to occur. So there's an immense responsibility on us. If it is true that life has a cosmological role, and I'm going to explain a little bit more about that in a minute, there's an immense responsibility placed on our shoulders to not allow the enormity of transnational corporations and political processes and financial processes to hijack the whole process on the planet, so that we end up watching the Earth get raped and feel helpless and don't ever find out how to actually change human consciousness enough in time to prevent the damage. Because what will happen is people will realise eventually that it was a very bad idea, and then they will look at this generation and say, what on earth was wrong with that generation that they were so selfish and had no foresight of the long-term future nature of things. Okay, so it's a privilege to be in this generation, but it's also a big responsibility, and it's of the nature of what Apocalypse is. It's an unveiling of reality and make or break situation of potential destruction and potential rebirthing of an epoch of very great abundance, because the knowledge that we've found gives us new keys for abundance.
I'm a biocosmologist, and I study the relationship between the origin of the universe and the origin and evolution of life on Earth. And you can see here from this diagram that is showing the entire evolution of the universe and the cosmic age of the universe, from the Big Bang and cosmic inflation through to galaxy formation, and finally the evolution of life on Earth, which you can see down in the right hand third is this narrow yellow and green piece, which you can see as it expands, that life has been on Earth for about a third the entire cosmic history of the universe. And when we look at this in detail and look at the last 600 million years of evolution of the diversity of life on Earth, you find that there have been massive growths of diversity and there have been catastrophic extinctions. Now, the extinction that we look back to with some horror to the demise of the dinosaurs is actually only a little glitch here on biodiversity, that although it wiped out the dinosaurs, and we know there was a terrible, and believe there was a terrible asteroid strike and a nuclear winter scenario, it still has only had a net effect of about 18, or the order of magnitude of 20% of the diversity destroyed on the planet. Now that's by contrast with the end, that you can see our predictions for next century are to lose between 33% and 66% of all life. Now this is a very serious triage of life. It is a cosmic catastrophe for the future generations of Earth. It's not being caused by a huge astronomical impact, but simply human selfishness and greed, and a lack of foresight for the genetic resources of the planet, that all our generations in future are going to look back and say, why did you do this in one short century? If we look to a realistic comparison, the next worst disaster is this one that you can see here, this very big dent, which is the Permian extinction, in which up to 90% of life was extinguished. And it took many millions of years, somewhere between 10 and 50 million years, for the diversity of life to recover. We're renewing the waters of life because at the end of time the waters of life are supposed to flow through the roots of the tree of life, and the waters of life have always been symbolized by Miriam. Miriam sounded the timbrel when the waters were separated in the Exodus, and it's very possible that Miriam was actually the one that separated the waters, because the feminine has responsibility over the waters, and Miriam died at Kadesh Barnard. Kadesh means holy, and it was used as a symbol of the goddess in pre-Judaic times as a symbol of Hathor, who ministers from the tree of life, the waters of life.
This valley is like a great vagina. You see there are the two sides. If you walk down, we can feel it much better if we walk the path. And there are the stones, that's the, well, in Hebrew you say Dakdekan. It's good, I don't know how to say it in English.
What is it?
Where the woman gets her ecstasy.
The clitoris of the world is here. Are we getting close to the source of the waters of the well of Miriam now?
Here.
Aha! So in this sense.
Where you have such rocks, there is a spring.
Ah.
So these rocks are really full of water under.
Okay, so we have the clitoris is giving forth to the waters of life, which are finally manifest in the well of Mary.
Down there. And here is the crotch, you see? This is the crotch. And there, the cave is the beginning of the vagina. And the well is the uterus.
The theme for the opening of the tree of life is the reflowering. And here we have, it's midwinter, and we have the flowers breaking forth from the ground, right at the clitoris of the entire tradition of Israel.
This is the crotch here, down here, and this is an oak tree, which in Hebrew is called alon.
So this is our first sacred oak, even of Sichem and Mamre, goes back to the time of Abraham.
This is baby Ella pistachio. There are two kinds, this one and this one. This alon is a big tree and strong, and Ella is a bushy tree that just winds around the alon.
And what do the two words mean?
Ella is the goddess, right? Alon is the same root. Alon is the
male goddess.
May.
The consort of the goddess.
Yes,
The masculine
that's it.
face of God.
I think the male goddess is an important thing to recognize. People keep talking about the female face of God, the female facet of God. So if you say the male goddess, then you're adding some new idea, some new orientation to it.
Finally over here we have the well.
She had a tent here, and she was waiting for the Mashiach.
You know her
somewhere
name?
else. Ovadia Abyssinia.
Spring. It's called Mary's Spring or the Virgin Spring, or in Hebrew, Mayan Miriam. Miriam, you know, the mother of Yeshua, Jesus. The legend is that she came to visit her cousin Elizabeth, the mother of John the Baptist. When Elizabeth had already given birth to John the Baptist, he was a little boy, 6 or 7, and Mary was pregnant. At the end of the pregnancy was Jesus, and she was very thirsty, you know, she was traveling on a donkey or whatever, and the mountain gushed forth with water.
He's a very famous phallic hero, trickster hero in Polynesian myth called Maui, both in New Zealand and in Hawaii. And the end of Maui was that he called up the vagina of the goddess trying to dispel her, trying to conquer mortality, and he died. The fantail called out, and she woke up, and he was crushed between her thighs. So what Jane and I are restoring the feminine, and the danger to the male is alleviated by both of us crawling into the vaginal orifice, and that is the beginning of new life.
And I saw this in a vision.
The name of LR was hallowed on the coast of Israel while we were in Jerusalem. Jane attended a 1,000-strong celebration of women in the name of the ancient Hebrew goddess.
Flew into the walls and then crashed, and then people weren't picking them up to take. Is that like just the height of grotesque animal torture? Really worship torture. Actually, I think that was probably just the result of somebody with too large of a planning budget.
And stay with the hug. Stay with the hug.
Stay
she
with it.
goes away from hugs. So now she's going to stay with the hug. If we don't hug here, we're going to die.
That's right, that's right.
Survival mechanism.
Wait.
Today keeps war away or brings peace to stay.
Neat. Of course, just as we are now crossing the Ganges to the Himalayas in the sky, I did descend from the sky on Jerusalem. The Travail woman too has been born on Shekinah's eagle wings into the wilderness of paradise the Eden Dome represents, pregnant with the epoch of the tree and the waters of life. We are now flying into Nepal to witness the deforestation of the bare Himalayan foothills below and to celebrate the reunion with Kali, the ancient Black Madonna of history. The Queen of the South shall rise up in the judgment with the men of this generation. Kathmandu is the home of a unique mix of ancient Hindu custom and the Buddhism that spread from India into the country of Tibet to fuse with Bon shamanism to become Tibetan Buddhism. Both Buddhist and Hindu Tantra celebrate the sacred union of woman and man. While Hindu Kali is dominant in sexual union over a lifeless Shiva, in Buddhist Yabyum, father-mother, the male is resounding with cosmic power and many arms and heads, while the female is often a simple human. She has the 2 arms and he has the many arms.
Yeah.
Now why does the man have many arms?
Because man have also 4 faces.
Whoa, great. But Tibetan Buddhism also adopted Kali. Here she stands over a lifeless Shiva as a wrathful spirit of purification, her head adorned with the skulls of the dead.
Or a single mukha.
But was Buddha perfect?
Yeah.
You think so? Although the streets of Kathmandu are now adorned with internet cafes, the medieval life of the markets continues as it has for centuries. Shiva is lord of the animals, fertility and death. What would Lord Shiva say? What would Lord Shiva say to this? There we are. The service, right? 2 manifestations of Shiva. Huh? You a Shiva? You a Shiva?
Shiva.
You a Shiva? I'm
Shiva,
Shiva.
Shiva.
Om Namah Shiva.
Om Namah
Om Namah Shiva. Kali, the Queen of the South in all her splendour, again showing her Tibetan face. Right hand, those hands, they're real severe. This woman will take no nonsense. And look at her cut there, she's a real bloodthirsty one. And look, we have a goat here, right here, a black goat. Kathmandu is rich with both Buddhist and Hindu shrines. These little shrines are amazing. Look at this one here with the tree shrine of the Buddha. Here we have the wrathful guardian of the temple gate. Above Kathmandu is the golden Buddhist stupa of Swayambhunath, our Buddha of the night. The sexual reunion is also celebrated by the male dorje or thunderbolt, complementing the female bell. Very good?
Very good. Yeah.
Kali Ma! Here is Bodhanath, our Buddha of the day. Buddhism stands as a lighthouse of clarity and equanimity in a human religious history full of holy war. Tibetan Buddhism is unique and special in carrying both the ancient roots of Mongolian shamanism and the Vedantic roots of Buddhism here. I call on China to free Tibet for the good of all peoples. Om Mani Padme Hum. In the empowerment of woman lies the future of life's abundance on earth.
Pasupatinath. Pasu means animals, Pati means Lord, and Nath means the
Lord
element.
of the animals.
Right. Nath means the element that eternally guides the entire universe.
You know Kali is time.
Right.
That's what Kali makes your hair go grey.
Kal. Kal means the time, like the tens.
Kal means the time?
Right. Kal. Tens.
You are eaten by time. We are all eaten by time, unfortunately.
Right.
For humanity to endure in time, we need to respect Kali, the life cycle of the earth, and the temporal as well as the eternal, some call a Godhead. Kali lies at the centre of life's passage from birth to death. Only through living constructively in time, in a flowering of life's abundance, can our future generations survive and prosper.
Lifts 50 kilos of rocks by his male genital organ.
Penis of Shiva and vagina of Kali.
He's drinking only milk since 19 years, so it's nothing else.
Nothing else.
Right, only drinking milk.
अवधपुरी में खेल रचावे चारों भैयन काला श्री राम रघुवर तेरा प्यारा।
Here Buddha and Shiva are given offerings together without discrimination. Nepal is one of the few places in the world where Buddhism finds its natural home, alongside Shiva and Kali and the Hindu tradition in the spiritual life of the people. The spiritual condition is spontaneous and organic, part of our evolutionary heritage, far deeper and more immediate and profound than any organised religion, doctrine or creed. These offerings to Buddha are offerings to all life. In offering to the divinity of the whole cosmos in the high places and under every green tree, the divinity within us and between us all becomes manifest in the music of the life stream. To Rani Jethmalani, Kali is an energizer and saviour of oppressed women through social and political empowerment. It is possible through the revival of an energized feminine principle symbolized by Kali, ethically dynamic, control-free, autonomous and active, who challenges the civilized order and the status quo. Here we make the transit from the Himalayas to the plains of India and the ancient holy city of Varanasi. Om Namah Shivaya.
Burning heart, fire, dead body. There are many places.
Okay, I'm standing here in Varanasi. I've made a pilgrimage of halfway across the planet at least to come here after going to Jerusalem, and I'm trying to establish here, turning the tables, the Shulamite, the black queen, the Queen of Sheba. Jesus said the Queen of Sheba would return and curse the men of this generation. Now that's true too. But I've made a pilgrimage here for Kali, who is also the black Madonna of history, far more ancient than the Queen of Sheba. And I'm making a pilgrimage to Kali. Kali may be bloodthirsty, but time itself is bloodthirsty, and Kali's name stands beside time. So the eternal nature of the male god is counterbalanced by the temporal nature of all things. My hair is going grey because of time. We need to pay our respects to Kali, and we need to pay our respects to the Vedantic tradition, a very ancient tradition that runs the way back to Mohenjo-daro and Harappa, the Indus Valley civilizations, long before the Vedas, long before the Aryans came into India. And I stand here wearing a Tibetan jacket, also having taken Buddhist vows. And Buddhism is really just one part of the ancient Indian tradition, just as Christianity is just one part of the ancient Jewish tradition. So in seeking the sacred marriage of the paths, the reunion of Christianity and Judaism, I also seek the reunion of Buddhism and the Vedantic path, and pay respects to the Vedantic path as the source, as the Ganga, the river of the meditative tradition. And in making this pilgrimage, I want to stress that the Judeo-Christian paths are not the only or the valid path, and that I feel a great sense of affinity as all sadhus are in a sense Shiva incarnate. And you have also the persona of Krishna. There's a sense of being Krishna and Christ have a similar root. Krishna, just as Jesus was, the women of Galilee gave unto Jesus of their very substance, so Krishna courted the cowgirls. And so we have in the Indian story, Jesus is both Shiva and Krishna together. And so I stand as an incarnation of Shiva and Krishna, paying my respects to Kali here at Varanasi. There you go. Jesus said, "The poor always ye have with you, but me ye have not always." I want to turn the tables. I shall always be with you, but the poor will be healed in compassion, in the epoch of plenty, as the meek shall inherit the earth. In the world of good science and sustainable population, all people can be fed and cared for well. Poverty is a symptom of the philosophy of scarcity and the competition of the rich over the poor. While more food is produced than can feed the world, and stockpiles mount, some people starve because of human jealousy to maintain profits. There you go. These girls are very precious. Perhaps 50,000 girl children are killed or aborted annually, up to 15% of all baby girls. In one hospital in Bombay, 96% of mothers who were told they had a daughter aborted, while 100% were sons carried to term. Love the girl child. Do not harm her. Om Namah Shivaya, Om Shankar. Just after I was here in Varanasi, Hindu extremists threatening violence forced out the female director Deepa Mehta from shooting her film Water for sullying their culture by portraying the widows here in Varanasi in sexually exploitive situations. But the widows are exploited. To deny water is to deny the very Ganga, the river of life itself. Another Hindu atrocity against women is the burning of brides over the dowry. Dowry bride deaths, often by burning in their kitchens, numbered nearly 2,000 in Uttar Pradesh alone in 1994 and has surged since 1987. Again I say, do not burn the bride, but honour her.
Shiva is having a bad...
Ram Mohan Ray brought down the barbaric custom of sati, widows burned on their husbands' funeral pyres. But today in Varanasi, 6,000 impoverished widows live wretched lives of living sati among the charnel houses cast aside by their sons or male relatives within weeks of their bereavement. Many are beggars while others are forced into prostitution. A third time I say, in the name of Kali, free the girl child, the bride, and the widow from pain of death and subjugation, so that the world shall flower in abundance. Returning to Europe to bless the spring waters and enter the fertile ground of the earth goddess. The darkness drops again, but now I know that 20 centuries of stony sleep were vexed to nightmare by a rocking cradle. And what rough beast, its hour come round at last, slouches towards Bethlehem to be born. W.B. Yeats, The Second Coming. We have come to Glastonbury, the Isle of Avalon, as part of our world vigil, to weave a reunion between the ancient goddess of Europe and the early roots of Christianity. This is Glastonbury Abbey, where Arthur and Guinevere are believed to lie buried. I'm standing in front of the thorn tree, which in at least mythology, Joseph of Arimathea bought as a staff after the crucifixion and planted on a nearby, I'll just turn and tell you, Wirral Hill, the original thorn tree grew. There's now a cutting of it that grows here. The thorn tree is like Aaron's sprouting rod because it symbolises regeneration. It's also thorns, so it's symbolising the pain, and it is bearing now flowers and fruit. It's reputed to fruit every Christmas and every Easter, but it's a symbol of regeneration. It's a type of tree of life. It still exists from now in the millennium through from the year zero, at least in mythology, and represents part of a tradition where it's reputed that Joseph of Arimathea made a voyage to the British Isles, and as Mary Magdalene is reputed to have come to the south of France. So there's a story that the central characters involved in the crucifixion and after the death of Jesus, the ascension, came to the western shores of Europe. Here we have the fruit and the flowers and the buds all together simultaneously. So what do you make of the Isle of Avalon, Jane?
It's beautiful.
And have we seen the mists?
Magical, yes. We're in them.
Yes, it is.
Here is the Chalice Well, some of the most beautiful water we've ever drunk. Opposite the Chalice Well is the second spring flowing from under the Tor, the White Spring, built on the site of the old Glastonbury Reservoir. There's an ancient legend that the Tor has a secret entrance to the underworld. There are remains there dating back to the 4th and 5th centuries. The last abbot of Glastonbury was hung, drawn and quartered there by Henry VIII.
This is Glastonbury Tor, November 23rd, 1999. Arriving in a new place, I was instructed to climb the hill. I spoke to the well as I was taught, who answered me sweetly in the voice of a frog, and called me blessed. I spoke of you to the well. He said you are his friend. His ancient wisdom made me laugh with joy. I then gave to the well the requisite coin and a flower, and I ran down the hill to the dancing people, who returned me to the beginning of this world, with apple seeds and blossoms and a secret. Climbing then up a perilous tunnel, with the help of the owl and a wild storm following, I came to this place so new. Now I laugh because I have seen you, my sister, my heart's flower, who lives in my world's tomorrow, today.
We camped at night by Silbury Hill, one of the largest man-made mountains, which some people believe is a giant pregnant woman. We made a vigil to Avebury, one of the greatest and most ancient stone circles, because it is believed to be the site of reunion celebrations of fertility. It has two great avenues in either direction, which some people believe the lads and lasses approached upon in reunion of fertility in the ancient circle. When we arrived at Avebury, there was an insane tolling of bells. We are now approaching Kennet Longbarrow. We made a vigil to Kennet Longbarrow to reunite with the feminine earth in the personae of Morgan and the Green Man. When we arrived, we found Sarah, who is an artist, painting a triptych of the goddess and the Green Man and their reunion, complete with an altar of candles for each and flowers. The day before, the Green Man had appeared to her in a vision at Kennet, so our arrival was a confirmation of a prophecy.
We came to Glastonbury and Avebury partly because in The Mists of Avalon, a novel by Marion Zimmer Bradley, she shows Glastonbury to us the uniting of the early Arthurian Christian time with the ancient goddess religion at Avalon. And so in the novel, this is a place where the two meet and mingle, and it's the last place in the world where they meet and mingle in that way. And we think that we would like to see a reuniting of all paths and bring the goddess back into the world. And so it seemed a good, appropriate place to enter the mists of Avalon and stand on Glastonbury Tor and then come to Avebury and sit here in this barrow and feel it and talk about it. Your turn.
Okay. I'm sitting here with Jane. Beside us are two sets of candles. There are 4 green candles representing the Green Man and 2 white candles representing the goddess.
That Sarah brought.
That Sarah bought.
And flowers.
And flowers that Sarah bought. But this is an auspicious time because Sarah is here and we came to do this presentation of the reuniting of feminine and masculine. And Sarah had actually just bought these candles and placed them here before we arrived. And I'm intentionally represented here as a Green Man as a healing process partly for Christianity, because Jesus was the true vine, and we have a tremendous epoch of destruction. We have bloodshed, we have the bloodshed of the cross, we have the burning of Armageddon, we have now the burning of the great rainforest, so we have the green element
is being put to hellfire essentially, and so the antidote to this process is the reuniting of feminine and masculine and the reuniting of humanity and nature. And Jesus also descended into hell and ascended again. Inanna does the descent. The descent is done by Inanna in 3 days, and she returns to the surface. And by threading together the underworld and the world of heaven and the world of earth, we gain a sense of unity and appreciate the cosmic perspective in reuniting heaven and the underworld and earth and the world of living experience together. So Jane and I are coming here intentionally to be in the bowels of the earth, to end this myth that Jesus is just associated with heaven, to bring about the greening of the planet through the male gender readopting the persona of the green man and reuniting with nature and reuniting with the feminine. So that's why we are here, and we are here to represent that, for that to be seen, that has been done, that the masculine has returned into the uterine bowels of the earth in the regeneration of the process of nature.
It is the womb. It is the womb of the goddess. So we sit here trying to make new birth. Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, the poem we read on Glastonbury tour was one that I wrote, that expressing reunion between male and female. The first one is the goddess, because she's the first person, she's the first deity that I've encompassed, that I understand. The second is going to be the god, because yesterday I met the green man, and I now understand, or I feel as if I've got more of an intuition about the green man. And this one is actually the goddess one. And then the third one is going to be the uniting of the both.
Oxford, Magdalene Street. Well, this is a severe flash forward. I'm sitting in the editing studio in mid-September 2000, months later in New Zealand. And this is the afterthought that's always been with the situation, which is biocosmology and the nature of conscious experience. And the Messiah is often associated with Jesus, and particularly with the Jewish tradition. It really has a wider context throughout the fertility tradition. And the reality is the Messiah is the human that returns to open the prison to them that are bound, and liberating humanity into the apocalypse, which is the unveiling of the cosmic nature of reality and conscious experience, which gives back the meaning to existence of what humanity is in space-time. And Jesus was a transgressor and committed the ultimate blasphemy. And I'm going to commit the ultimate sin of the media, which is to give a serious scientific explanation that's a challenge to the intellect, and it's a transgression to religion, because this is being the Messiah of practical science. Science is, in fact, the feminine aspect of reality, the embodiment. Liberating us is explaining the scientific nature of reality and how conscious experience fits in. Now, it's 7 minutes, and I apologise to you all. Be patient. This is the abyss and the Rainbow Bridge. All our evidence indicates the universe had an explosive cosmic beginning in the Big Bang some 10 to 12 billion years ago, and has evolved since into the mature universe we see today. As we have noted in the talk on biodiversity, throughout the last third of cosmic time, biological life has existed on Earth. Life is thus a stable manifestation on cosmic timescales, paradise on the cosmic equator, as illustrated here with Darwin, Solomon's hoopoe, and the serpent in the cosmic Eden, which, although it cannot withstand the alpha of the Big Bang, nor the eventual omega of the heat death or cosmic crunch, is nevertheless the fulfillment of the cosmic scheme in interactive complexity. The universe is a fractal, much like a snowflake, with larger and smaller structures in a cascade, from the Great Wall filling the known universe, to galaxy clusters, galaxies, individual stars, and finally planets and satellites, each part of the cosmic process. The source of these rich properties is the symmetry breaking of the forces of nature, in which gravity, electromagnetism, and the two nuclear forces become wildly different, leading to the twisted structure of matter as we know it, with highly dense atomic nuclei surrounded by a cloud of negatively charged electrons, resulting in turn in 100 different atoms with diverse orbital energies. The non-linear stickiness of chemical bonding, and consequently the interactive molecular complexity we find in proteins and nucleic acids. What many scientists do not fully understand is that it is the non-linear nature of these fundamental interactions that makes possible the emergent structures we find in biological complexity, from the molecule through cell organelles to whole tissues including the brain. The non-linear way chemical bonds interact also leads to the origin of life through the interaction of the biological elements. Here the periodic table is arranged so the cosmic interaction between the bioelements can be seen clearly. Notice the optimal nature of water, which is the quantum matrix for complex protein and nucleic acid structure, as illustrated in these pictures of the extraordinary diversity of snowflake forms. These interactions lead to complex polymerizing reactions, forming many of the organic molecules which are the basis of life. Central among these is the RNA nucleotide unit, illustrated here by ATP, which consists of the pentamers of HCN and HCHO, the base adenine and the sugar ribose, bound together by inorganic phosphate. Both these molecules, along with amino acids and sugars, have been detected in interstellar gas clouds where stars are being formed, including the Orion Nebula. Notice also here in the nebula this propylid, as we zoom in, a small forming star with the clearly defined accretion disk of a newly forming solar system. Life on Earth now goes back to the earliest geological records, almost as soon as the oceans condensed. Evolution also reflects the underlying cosmic pattern, giving rise to biochemistry, elaborated in the major metabolic niches of photosynthesis, predation, and decomposition. Evolution is a quantum interplay between accidental mutations like the cancer cure vincristine of the periwinkle, through to inevitable developments caused by many superimposed events, through relentless selection, such as the camera eye, which despite its complexity is formed by a single invagination. Evolution contains within it many examples reaching towards a universal solution, including the homeotic genes common to plants, fungi and animals, which enable the differentiation of the organism on its head-to-tail axis. We also see a fundamental symmetry breaking of sexuality, whose recombinational diversity has become essential for the evolution of all higher life forms into male and female genders, whose complementary reproductive strategies between the sperm's competitive particle-like behaviour and the large enveloping egg with its membranous waves carry all the way down the evolutionary tree to humanity, expressed as strongly in adult humans as in any life form, in the enormous manifestations of pregnancy, lactation, and early child rearing. These very different investments of the female and male make female reproductive choice pivotal to evolution through gender paradox. The mammalian brain is perhaps the quintessence of universality in evolution. Here the least structured and hence most adaptable sense, smell, has evolved to form a universal experiential organ for all quantum sense modes, the cerebral cortex. The sense modes are quantum modes. Vision is photon-orbital interaction. Sound is harmonic quantum excitation. Smell is orbital-orbital perturbation. I want to show you how the brain may have evolved to be conscious. The brain is a fractal structure whose organization runs from the global cortex and the memory and emotional areas of the limbic system shown here underlying the cortex, and also the ascending pathways from the basal brain which mediate alertness, light and dreaming sleep. Moving down a scale, we have the layers of neurons in the cortex shown upper left, and below that the scales of the cellular neuron, top right, its synaptic bulbs bearing neurotransmitters, centre, and finally down to the molecular level of the lipid membrane and protein ion channels, lower right. This fractality makes for a mutual interaction between the whole system and micro-instabilities, which permit small fluctuations to influence the whole when the system is critically poised. This diagram shows microcells made by polymerizing hydrogen cyanide, which are incidentally the same size as mushroom spores, putting them in the size range of typical cells. Now the idea is that the first eukaryote cells, leading to the higher organisms, had electrochemical membranes which entered into chaotic excitation, which became a quantum sense organ by making the cell arbitrarily sensitive to small perturbations in its environment. Just as the weather is unpredictable, because the butterfly's wing flap can become the seed for a cyclone. There is a variety of evidence that the brain uses dynamical chaos as part of its parallel processing, and that individual neurons also undergo chaotic excitation. The key idea is as follows. Chaotic excitation led to a form of quantum awareness, which links past and future to make a form of anticipatory consciousness. The physics behind this can be seen from the figure here, which applies the same principles as the Feynman diagram used with devastating accuracy to solve quantum field theories. When we look at a distant quasar, the light was released many millions of years before, but by changing between separate detectors and an interference film, we can arrange that the light took either one path around the intervening lensing galaxy, or both, implying the future receiver can affect past history. If such quantum entanglement in space-time occurs in resonant brainwaves, the dynamics may utilize these anticipatory transactions, forming a predictive process complementary to computation, the brain combining both in its survival strategy. Nothing less than this can explain why subjective awareness, rather than just computation capacity, was selected by evolution. The survival value of any such capacity is immense, because conscious foreboding is precisely what saves the gull in the split second the shark strikes. Subjective experience, which indeed is our only route to knowledge of the physical universe, is thus also a fundamental manifestation of cosmology, in effect the complementary aspect to the physical world. From this springs all liberation, because free will, conscious intentionality, is then real, expressed in the capacity of the subjective to influence material history. We are alive and central to the cosmic process. With this cosmic marriage feast comes an awesome responsibility to cherish the earth and replenish it, so that the unfolding can continue to flower throughout our generations. At Cambridge we visited the World Conservation Monitor Centre to interview them about their strategies for conservation of the world's living heritage of biodiversity. Jane and I are now somewhere right under the English Channel, in the van, inside a carriage, inside a tunnel, under the sea. So there you have it. This is pretty weird, isn't it? It's like being in a tube. It's like being tube.